Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this webinar, part one in our two-part webinar series for our annual Green Talks event. You'll remember, those of you who are familiar with when we were doing these in person, it would be one event that we would hold usually during the early part of the summer. With things being a little bit different this year, we've expanded the event to two parts. So today we have a couple of guest speakers who I'll introduce momentarily. My name is Paul Holden, President and CEO of the Burnaby Board of Trade, for those who don't know me, and as I say, welcome again to the event. I'd like to start by acknowledging that the event's being held on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Tsleil-Waututh, Musqueam and Squamish nations. And I'd like to thank the sponsors of this year's Green Talks events, Alexander College and Hemlock Printers. We appreciate their support to help this event possible, and to the support they've shown for a great deal of the work that we do as an organisation throughout the year. So we're pleased to be joined today by two tremendous local Burnaby-based businesses to discuss sustainability and innovation, and certainly during this COVID economy. Before we get to the speakers, I'd like to introduce Scott Marsden, who's the Director of Student Affairs at Alexander College. Alexander College is one of today's sponsors. We're very grateful to them for their support. And Scott, let me invite you to say a few words.
Wonderful. Yeah, thanks very much, Paul. Yeah, I'm Scott, and I'm very happy to be here to represent Alexander College for the Green Talks. For those of you who don't know who we are, we're a private post-secondary institution that's been growing in Burnaby for the last 15 years, and we offer two-year associate degrees in university pathway programs. We also sponsor a number of the events with Burnaby Board of Trade, this one included, and these Green Talks are particularly close to our hearts. Alexander College is largely an international school, with nearly all of our 2,500 plus students coming from places where environmentalism isn't of great concern at all. We've got two campuses that house these students in Burnaby and Vancouver, though our largest is here in Burnaby, and I'm just actually down from Paul right now, so he can probably see my office from where he is. That's why I was asking. So, yeah. But yeah, we're actually moving. We're constructing a new, larger campus just across the street from Metrotown, and we're doing so with an eye towards environmental design, with living walls, energy-conscious lighting and heating options, paper reductions, and other initiatives that follow along our commitment to the Pledge for Sustainable Communities. And anybody who hasn't seen that yet, please take a look at it. A plug for the Burnaby Board of Trade that they probably didn't see coming.
Thanks, Scott.
No problem. But we do this largely through the collective efforts of our Green Committee, our Alexander College Green Committee. And that won an environmental star from the city of Burnaby back in 2018. It's made up of a collection of staff, faculty, and students who are committed to greening our campus and the community around us. So here we work together to increase environmental awareness at the school, while creating events and leading initiatives with other businesses and organizations in order to decrease our environmental impact. So our mission with the Green Committee is to strive for sustainability through education, community engagement, modeling waste reduction best practices, and the like. We aim to produce environmentally responsible global citizens and contribute to the overall health of the communities in which we live. We host events such as repurposing old materials for projects, community gardening, beach cleanups, and tree planting, among other things. And we're always looking for new activities to inspire our students. Alexander College is happy to announce too that we're creating a new AC Go Green Ambassador program. And it's a program that's designed to encourage incoming international involvement in the AC Green Committee and increase our presence throughout Burnaby through education and activities. So we're doing this primarily through instruction on sustainable practices and practical ways to implement them. So many of our students, on finishing their education, they return home with these ideas still sort of fresh in their minds. And the goal is to sort of plant the seeds, if you will, of environmentalism in places where it wouldn't normally flourish. So while Alexander College commits to the larger scope of environmentalism in sustainable practices, we're also recognizing that educating our students and our citizens is what we can do as individuals to make sustainability stick. So again, that's kind of why we're here, to continue to be a part of the Green Talks, but also to listen and learn. We've taken some really good ideas from the previous Green Talks and adapted them into our current practices. And hopefully we're going to have a pretty amazingly carbon neutral new campus coming up in December. So thanks very much for letting me say the opening remarks, Paul, and for letting us talk about environmentalism.
That's a pleasure, and thanks again, Scott. Thanks for joining us today. for your organization's support that we really do appreciate throughout the year. So thanks again very much. So now for the first speaker, we're going to introduce Amanda Chaw, Sustainability Specialist for Hemlock Printers, and she'll discuss what they are doing to be sustainable even during these challenging times. Amanda.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Burnaby Board of Trade. As you know, my name is Amanda, and I am the Sustainability Specialist at Hemlock Printers. I'm going to be speaking specifically about Hemlock's sustainability story, as well as why we became a social purpose business. And I think if it's okay with you guys, I'm going to share my own screen because we used our Hemlock font, and it may have changed the formatting of the slides. So is it okay if I share my own slides?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, excellent. So do that, just a moment. Okay, are you guys able to see the slides?
Yeah, I think you just need to start the slideshow and you'll be up and running. There you go.
All right, so we'll start off with who we are. If you guys are not familiar, Hemlock was established just over 50 years ago and is now one of the leading independent printing companies in North America. And we're very proud to be Canada's most environmentally progressive printing company. We are a premium print and service provider to leading brands across Canada and the US. And we've been able to expand into print production and distribution, largely in part to our expansions into 3 facilities in the Greater Vancouver area. And this includes Hemlock, Hemlock Harling, and Prism Tech Graphics. We consistently invest in new print technologies and create ever better print results. And so I'll dive into now what we do. So we, again, do print production and distribution. For large print projects, we do offset printing and finishing. For smaller projects, we do digital. And we've also strengthened our display, so that's signage and banners, through our joint acquisition of Prism Tech. We do web solutions as well as fulfillment and mailing, which is under the business of Hemlock Harling. And I want to give some great examples of the different print projects that we do. So we do business cards, brochures, magazines, stationery. Something that was really interesting to me was we do packaging as well, and as well beautiful displays like in the upper right-hand corner, Douglas College's window displays. So that's a little insight in what we print. And now we will dive in to sustainability at Hemlock and get into the nitty-gritty of that. So as I've said, we've been in business for over 50 years, and sustainability has really been at our core of our business on an operational, strategic level. And in 2018, late 2018, we decided to take a step back and figure out why our company actually exists and how we can communicate how we want to do good and benefit society as a whole. And so we decided to create a social purpose with United Way's Social Purpose Institute. And we came to this social purpose here, which is to create connections, build community, and inspire actions that safeguard the health of the world's forests. With paper being our largest input in our supply chain, we of course wanted to focus our sustainability efforts around forest conservation. And so we see a great benefit in expressing that North Star, creating inspiration and momentum through our purpose throughout the community, as well as making sure that our employees and staff are really connected into the day-to-day and why they're doing things by connecting to our purpose of safeguarding the health of the world's forests. So you may be asking, what is a social purpose business? And essentially it is an engine for good. And the very act of conducting business is a positive force in society. Our social purpose was not created overnight. It took about quite a few months to develop it. And we had our CEO, Richard Cowenhoven, over here, and our VP sales of marketing, go through VOPS techniques to really guide us down that path of finding social purpose with other business leaders as well. And so that's our journey of finding our social purpose. In one of our SBI workshops, we were encouraged to link our social purpose of safeguarding the world's forests to one sustainable development goal. And we decided to go with 5 because why not? So our 5 SDGs that we really connect with are climate action, life on land, responsible consumption and production, clean, affordable and clean energy, and partnerships for the goals. So I'll go through each one of these goals now. The first one being climate action, which is taking urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. And we do so by being a carbon neutral in operation since 2007, as well as providing a customer-facing program called the Zero Carbon Neutral program for our clients, which has been around since 2009. And so I'll first walk you guys through being a carbon neutral operation since 2007. So like many of you probably do, is you measure your carbon footprint, which we do through a social enterprise called Climate Smart. We then reduce our footprint as much as we can throughout the year through emission reduction initiatives, which is quite possibly the most important step in reducing our footprint. And then, of course, purchasing our offsets, which are directly connected to our social purpose. We make sure our offsets go to one of 4 forest conservation projects. So moving on, we also enact climate action through our Zero Carbon Neutral program and enable our clients to also take responsibility for their carbon footprint. And we really want to focus on step 2, which is to go neutral. We encourage our clients to choose a low carbon paper to start and then pay a very small fee in order to offset their print project. So it's not just about making the project carbon neutral, it's also choosing the most environmentally progressive papers as possible. And we wanted to make sure we created an overarching goal, which is to strive for 50% of our orders to be carbon neutral in the next year or so we can grow our contributions to our forest conservation projects. So here are some images of the Great Bear Rainforest, which these projects contribute towards, Zambia, as well as Afognak, Alaska, and Quadra Island. And so in order to get to that 50% of our orders being carbon neutral, we've decided to greatly expand our automatically carbon neutral papers and products. And so what we've done is we work upstream with our mills to create these products that essentially make it very easy for our customers to choose the most environmentally progressive papers, as well as making their print projects carbon neutral right away as a default. So we've worked with Nina Paper Mill in 2014. In 2019, we worked with Mohawk Paper Mill. We've made our digital house sheets and business cards carbon neutral come January. And just this September, we worked with Roland, a Quebec-based mill, in making their environmental paper carbon neutral as well. And you'll see a trend with these stocks is that they're all made from 100% post-consumer waste, so that we're making smart choices with the stocks selected and also making them carbon neutral as well. The second goal that we connect to is life on land. So these aspects are the sustainably managed forests, as well as halting biodiversity loss. And we do so through our purchases of paper. 90% of our paper is FSC certified, which is the highest forest certification standard. And we also make sure that we want to walk the talk as well. So we have participated in Pact for Good, which is a nonprofit canopy initiated by Canopy, which is a nonprofit organization. And this basically has this pledge that we will make sure that our shipping packaging, like our shipping boxes, contain no ancient and endangered forest fiber in it. So we do this by making sure our boxes are FSC certified, as well as with the highest percentage of recycled content possible. And so we're working actively with our suppliers to do this and hope to implement this by the end of the year. We also focus on halting and reversing land degradation. And so this is a really strong cultural initiative at Hemlock. And we use the 5 R's of zero waste to inspire our employees. So that would be rethink, refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle / re-earth, which is composting. So we have our internal committee of staff that is called the think tank. We measured our amount of annual waste at our dumpster dive, which was in 2019. And then based on those measurements, we want to put a plan in action. So we are now actively piloting and implementing improved sorting bin signage so that we can optimize our recycling further. The third goal is ensuring sustainable consumption and production patterns are achieved. And so we're taking a look at our supply chain and value chain from forest to mill to merchant to Hemlock to client, all the way to recycling in order to make sure that we are responsibly consuming and producing. And so again, this is in direct connection with safeguarding the health of the world's forests. Through advocacy initiatives, we reach out to over 18 mills and merchants to make sure that we're, encouraging them to increase transparency with their forest sourcing locations, as well as encouraging research and development for environmentally progressive papers. So this is a push for tree-free papers that use agricultural fibers instead, such as straw, hemp, and recycled cotton, all with the goal of protecting our forests. Second to last is affordable and clean energy. So this is ensuring access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy. We do this by being a renewable natural gas leader with Fortis BC. So 10% of our natural gas we use is renewable natural gas. And then we are also the only printer in Canada that is Greenie certified. So this means that we acknowledge our hydroelectricity consumption and we purchase renewable energy credits to great clean tech projects like the Oklahoma wind turbine project. And then last but not least, and quite potentially the most important SDG, is to revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. So this means working with key players, your closest allies and stakeholders, to make sure that you're pushing sustainability forward for your organization and also society as a whole. So working alongside government, customers to educate them on the most environmentally progressive papers in our situation. It's working with partners like NGOs and also third-party certifications to making sure that we're checking off all of our boxes and making sure that we're holding ourselves to a very high standard of sustainability. It's also making sure that we're influencing positive changes with our suppliers to embrace the values that we embrace very deeply. And of course, inspiring our employees to be change makers and actively identifying operational efficiencies and sustainability practices when they do their everyday work. And then having leadership, again, push forward our sustainability strategy further. So, we're really fortunate to have made a sustainable impact so far, but we are not close to done yet. We want to make sure that we continue to do so on a company-wide, local, and international scale. And we're so glad to, see other businesses in the community and in our industry also do the same and keep pushing us to keep raising that bar. So in close, when integrating sustainability into your business, we have a couple key takeaways. The first one is creating a social purpose. We think it is a great way to create a North Star and positive momentum for your organization. The second is to develop a framework with the guidance of the Sustainable Development Goals. The third is to get those key stakeholders on board and to also say yes to sustainability opportunities. It might seem a little bit intimidating to take on certain opportunities, but they create such great benefits for the organization and society. It always works out and it is so beneficial. So say yes. And so, yeah, that is it for me. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, let me know, or questions afterwards, you can always email me or contact me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Amanda. There'd be a great round of applause right now if we were doing this in person. That was a great presentation, and over the years, you know, we at the Board of Trade have become very familiar with Hemlock and some of the great work that you've been doing. We're very pleased to be the only Chamber of Commerce that's in the country so far that's partnered with United Way on the social purpose work that they're doing to help other businesses to move forward in that way as well. But you've done some fantastic work there, and I'm sure we'll have some questions coming up. Again, thanks for doing this today, Amanda, and thanks for sharing a lot of that great work. We'll now hand over to Alan Langdon, President and CEO of ReturnIt, who's going to share some of the work that they've been doing.
Great. Just going to wait for my presentation to load. Good morning, everyone, and sorry, good afternoon. And I just want to pick up where Amanda left off, and a couple things I'd say in terms of our journey that I would agree. We used actually in terms of our social purpose, we also used the SDGs and found it a great way, a great lens filter for us to think about our social purpose. And then we also did extensive internal and external stakeholder reviews. So we ended up, I think, we did every member of our board of directors, and then we did focus groups within our, we talked to all employees, but we did them in groups where they wouldn't include their manager, and the whole process, I think. And then we did external stakeholders, and then we followed that up with an ideation session with external stakeholders. And all of it, I think, really fed into making sure that we were able to find ourselves on the right path once we, determined our social purpose. But anyway, a lot of what I'm going to talk about today. My name's Alan Langdon. I'm the President and CEO of ReturnIt, and I'm here today really to talk about how we're accelerating our transition to a greener and a contactless system for recycling. And all of that, of course, in line with our social purpose, which really is activated, particularly through COVID, is providing us with that North Star in terms of where we want it to go. So I don't know if I'm moving these slides or if someone's moving them for me. I don't know, Jocelyn, if you can move them. I don't seem to be able to. Oh, thanks. And maybe next slide. So first of all, who we are. So ReturnIt, we've been around over 25 years. Last year was our 25th anniversary. We oversee the beverage container management program, the program for used beverage containers in British Columbia. It's a bit of a unique thing within the context of the Canadian regulatory framework, in that we're probably the only deposit system or beverage container management system that's completely industry managed. So we report to a board of directors that's a combination of industry as well as independent directors. And we essentially manage all of this material without any interaction or support from government. We also are a service provider to some of the other stewardship programs in this province, and particularly the electronics program and the major appliances program. And one other thing I would focus on is, part of our success has really been the regulatory framework that BC has chosen, which is one that's focused on outcomes versus prescription. And so it's really enabled us to innovate and really focus on how can we increase our recovery rate and do it in the most efficient manner possible. Next slide. Just to give you an idea of our presence, so we have 170 collection locations across BC. So we're providing access to about 98% of the province, and I think you can see on this slide, we already go all the way up to Fort Nelson. And we've got a really well-known brand. I'm sure most of you have seen our commercials and our puppets. So, we test our consumer awareness every year with about 90% brand awareness, and 99% consumers know that they can return their used beverage containers to a ReturnIt location. Next slide. And we're also proud of the impact we have in the community. So because we operate in so many communities, partnerships are crucial to our success. So two things I would highlight. So we've had a long-standing partnership with the Binners Project, where we've actually invested in their cart share project, which is to develop a system where it would essentially act like bike share, where Binners would be able to take carts, use them during the day, and then drop them off at night in a secure location where they'd be cleaned and then available for them to pick up at the same or at another location the next day. And then one project we've started in the last year has been Oceans Ambassadors Canada. It's a great program working through schools, mainly in Metro Vancouver. And really its goal is to It's a day-long program where kids can learn about the ocean, about plastics, and then about the impact of plastics in the ocean. And then that's all wrapped up with a 2-hour paddleboard lesson. So it's been a great way to immerse kids in educating about plastics and educating about the ocean. And you know, it's surprising, even in a place like Vancouver, still a lot of kids don't have that opportunity to do something as simple as a paddleboard and get out on the ocean. So we're really proud of that program as well. Next slide. So in terms of driving sustainability and innovation through our social purpose, so we worked like Hemlock and others over a long time to come up with our social purpose using the SDGs and extensive stakeholder consultation. And really what we came down to is we exist to foster a world where nothing is waste. And if someone can just hit the slide, it'll show there's some details we can add. Yeah, there's some animation coming in. There we go. Perfect. So by foster, we mean that collaboration and partnerships are critical to our success. A lot of what we want to achieve can't be done just on our own. We need partners to help get us there. In terms of a world, we want to be able to influence systems in other parts of the world by providing expertise and advice. We're conscious that things such as the presence of plastics in our marine environment, our oceans, aren't an issue that necessarily starts in BC, but it's one where we can take a leadership role and help influence other jurisdictions and other countries in terms of how they're managing their waste. And so we're really trying to do that through leadership, expertise, best practices. And then in terms of nothing is waste, we're really trying to redefine how we produce and view waste. So that includes, you know, upfront packaging design, recyclable content and reusable initiatives, reimagining the role of materials, products, and resources, and really getting away from trying to focus on waste as a misplaced resource. We're conscious as we move forward that, you know, there's an age of growing scarcity. The world continues to grow and the amount of materials that continues to be produced grows as well. And at some point, we need to find more circular models for managing this material. And that will include, you know, finding ways to make sure that the material that we're collecting and recycling is reused by our producers as recycled content. And then also partnering with various groups to, where it's appropriate, implement reusable initiatives. Next slide. We've also been really focused on modernizing the recycling system in BC. So over the last really 12 to 18 months, we've really focused on what we call our express system. And probably since the beginning of the COVID pandemic, never has this been more important. So really what it's about is about providing a fast, convenient, and contactless and easy recycling experience in under a minute. No sorting, and we upload deposit refunds to an online account, which can be redeemed directly via e-transfer. And we've had a huge increase in customer satisfaction levels. And just in the last 18 months, have been able to register over 100,000 people to the program. So really what it essentially involves is people just coming down to the depot with their containers and bag unsorted, dropping them off, and then we count the containers for them and then upload the refunds into an online account. Right now we have 70 locations in depot, mostly in Metro Vancouver and Vancouver Island. We expect to have over 100 locations covering all markets in BC, over 30,000 people within 2 years. And then we're going to be expanding our Express Plus, which right now is just in Yaletown, but essentially a cashless depot, which also collects other materials like textiles and electronics. We also have 3 Express and Go locations. So these are unstaffed sea containers powered by solar energy that offer longer recycling hours. It's a smaller format, essential to our objective of increasing accessibility. And that takes place both in dense urban areas where it's difficult to site a traditional depot, as well as smaller rural locations. So examples would be, we launched the first one in Tofino last year, and then the second one up at SFU Burnaby, servicing mostly, or providing access and accessibility and servicing mostly the community of year-round residents that lives up on the mountain now. Next slide. The next step for us, which is actually happening next week, is also implementing a 10-cent unified deposit for all beverage containers. So as you can imagine, in a system where we're managing 1 billion containers a year, there can be a lot of complexity in managing just that many containers. And so we're on a track right now to try and simplify the system as much as possible and reduce consumer confusion. So last November, we increased the deposit on all our containers under a liter to 10 cents. And now we're lowering the deposit on all our containers over a liter down to 10 cents, so that every container in the system will carry one deposit. And we feel that through this, we'll be able to implement other system efficiencies that'll reduce sorting and enable the system to work in a much more efficient manner. And hopefully, reduce costs for everyone in the system, and especially the consumer. Next slide. And hand in hand with all that, in terms of simplifying the system, is find a way to introduce automation. So while we're really proud of what we've been able to accomplish over the last 25 years, and even before the pandemic came about, we were already looking to move forward with in-depot automation. But certainly with the advent of the pandemic, it's become even more important to limit touch points and support our depots being able to manage greater volume, greater volume of containers, and do it in a way that improves the customer experience. So in addition to automated sorting in the back, we'll also be looking at implementing reverse vending machines at the front, so that customers that don't necessarily want to use our express will have an easy and contactless way to get their deposit right away. And again, we think this sorting technology will provide operational and cost efficiencies that go hand in hand with the work we're doing on lowering the deposit. Next slide. And then also, like every other organization, we're conscious of our climate, or our GHG footprint, and the real challenges associated with climate change. It's something we take serious. And we're conscious that for us, a big part of our GHG footprint is actually our fleet. So what you're seeing there is the first of its kind, not just to return it, but actually the first of its kind anywhere in Canada, which is a hybrid electric truck that runs on both compressed natural gas and electricity. We're the first province to deploy this technology to transport recyclables. And we really feel this one truck is being operated on a pilot as part of an overall project to decarbonize our transportation fleet. So this one truck will increase the amount of beverage containers transported in a trip from 150,000 to 900,000 containers. And we hope that if this pilot is successful, then we'll be able to convert the entire fleet, and that would reduce our greenhouse gas from beverage container recycling up to 25%. So it's a small measure for us, but it's an important one in making sure that we can reduce our GHGs. And it's probably the first step in what will be a range of different activities to look at how we can address our greenhouse gas footprint going forward. Next slide. And then the other thing is finding ways to expand or extend the use of our infrastructure. So one project that we launched last year was textiles collection and recycling. And this was really just a program. We originally started with another group. We've recently moved over to partner with Salvation Army. It was really a function of having this existing infrastructure and trying to meet a need where a lot of residents were looking for opportunities to be able to recycle their textiles. We started with 13 locations. We're now up to 35. We're hoping to expand to Vancouver Island later this year, early next year. But when you think that, roughly 5% of everything going to landfill is textiles, we felt that it was really important to, extend our network to include this material. And so far in the first roughly 18 months of the project, we've already been able to divert 240 metric tons of textiles. And what can be resold in Salvation Army stores can, and if not, then we find other opportunities to have it reused in either other jurisdictions, or if it's not appropriate for reuse, find ways to recycle that material for use in rags and other uses. Next slide. And then finally, the other thing is just understanding that everything needs to be viewed, particularly in what we do in a global view. And so we were proud to sign on to what's called the Global Commitment, which is a project of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which is probably the leading think tank on circular economy, and one that has been able to engage brand owners across the world in moving to more circular vision. So this global commitment is specific to plastic, and it's really around, for us specifically, commitments have been made to recycle 80% of the plastic containers sold into the province of BC by 2025, as well as eliminate single-use plastic film for our supply chain by 2025. And we've already begun to do that with a shift to reusable bags in large depots in 2019. We've continued that with our medium-sized depots this year, and we hope to have all our depots converted off single-use plastic into reusable containers by next year. Signatories also commit to 3 actions to realize the vision: to eliminate all problematic and unnecessary plastic items, much like we're doing with single-use plastic film; innovate to ensure that plastics we do need are reusable, recyclable, or compostable; and then circulate all the plastic items we use to keep them in the economy and out of the environment. And certainly on that last one, we're looking to work more closely with the brand owners in the future to make sure that all the material we collect can actually be reused in new containers, primarily the plastic containers. We want to make sure that that plastic we're collecting and recycling is actually showing up as recycled content in new containers. Next slide. And then finally, if you've liked anything you've heard today, one of the other things we've tried to do is provide a platform to talk about all the good news that's happening. I know we had a talk just at the beginning of this about, some days it can feel pretty daunting with all the negative news. But if you actually just kind of peel below the surface, there's a lot of super interesting things going on, and a lot of what I think really optimistic things happening in terms of where we're going and the activities underway. So we've got a podcast, Closing the Loop. We're generally updating episodes every 2 to 4 weeks. And we're really trying to talk to people that we work with or people that we've even heard about. And so it's not limited to activities happening in Canada. We've talked to folks in Europe, folks in the States, and really just looking at what people are doing in terms of best practices, both from an NGO perspective, local government perspective, and brand owner perspective, and finding a way to share those stories of people we think are doing really cool and interesting stuff, and stuff that we hope is going to lead to a more sustainable future. So I encourage everyone to check it out. It's available wherever you get your podcast, be it iTunes, Spotify, or another platform. And at this point, that's our presentation. I really appreciate the opportunity from the Burnaby Board of Trade to share what we're doing, and happy to take any questions.
Well, thank you very much, Alan. And as I say, if in a different format, there'd be a round of applause going on now. But thanks very much.
Appreciate that.
Some really great things there. And Alan and I have spoken a few times, and I'm quite the fan of the express return. So that's all working well. And thanks again for taking the time today. As we've said, please put any questions in the Q&A if you have questions for Alan or Amanda, and I'll keep checking on those. But just to kick things off with both of you, if I may, we hear a lot talking nowadays, obviously, that the world is a very different place from what it was not that long ago. And for a great many businesses, staying afloat and just keeping themselves going is the #1 priority right now. So, perhaps in some cases, sustainability may have taken a little bit of a back seat for some while. What would you say to those businesses in terms of the importance of sticking with it, so to speak, from the sustainability point of view, or how to incorporate it into the business practices that you're having to put into place now just to keep yourself going and move into that recovery stage?
Maybe I'll start, first of all, it's hard to generalize. I think every business is going through a different experience. I think for us, we were deemed an essential service. And so one of the first things we grappled was, were we going to keep the doors open, given all we didn't know about the pandemic. But, what I would say is that for us, really, having gone through the social purpose, we really focused on that as our North Star, and figured that after we got over the initial shock, kind of as a leadership team, we're able to get around the fact that although things were going to change, the basics of what we wanted to implement were going to change. And so sure, some things slowed down, but we're able to continue the things like, updating our fleet. And for some things like Express, it actually accelerated the transition for us because it became really important to consumers that a lot of them didn't want to go into depot, and they didn't want to spend time waiting in line. And so things like Express, took on another urgency. And so we were able to capitalize on that, if you can capitalize on things in a pandemic, and move them forward. So I think for us, it has slowed us down, in that, the world and some things just move slower than they have, but it hasn't reduced or limited our commitment to some of the sustainability initiatives we have underway.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Amanda, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with everything that Alan has said so far. I think I'll speak to the part of, why should we still care? And even if things are slowing down, why we should still keep pushing forward with our sustainability initiatives. I think there is definitely a business aspect that Hemlock personally can connect with, and that's that sustainability has helped us with our competitive advantage. It's the long-standing relationships we've had with our customers, our suppliers, our NGOs that have really helped us work together in turbulent times like this. And it's just, we've seen growth with our US customer base specifically because of our sustainability that's integrated in our operations and our brands. So I think that's been really beneficial. I think also we have to speak to the sustainability aspect as well. So from an environmental aspect, when it comes to things like COVID-19, COVID-19 is directly linked to loss of biodiversity and depends on the conservation of our forests and habitats out there. So, when there's negative human impact that is destroying, our forests or our habitats, that's when pandemics and COVID-19 can spread to the human population. So really important to band together with different stakeholders across our value chain to make sure that we're making a positive impact and protecting our environment.
Thanks, Amanda. Thank you. So we have a question to do with getting buy-in, I guess, from all levels. Getting buy-in from your board, from owners, or from management, is any kind of action on sustainability within an organization possible if it doesn't have that top-down leadership commitment?
Yeah, and I could start off, I guess, from my point of view. Yeah, I would make a couple comments. I think one, I bought in early in part because we had been around for 25 years and really needed a reboot. We had some outdated vision, mission, and values that just really weren't keeping up with both who we were as an organization and also the kind of talent and people we were hoping to attract. So, for me, the buy-in was pretty easy. I think our board was more of a challenge. We did a lot of work with our board, and I think one of the learnings was, we did a lot of work at the end. So we had a pretty extensive process with the board, but we're really focused on the end when we're trying to close the deal with really bringing forward the business case. And one of our board members made a really great comment was, you know what, this was excellent. It would have been great to have all this information about the business case way in the front when we did it. And it would have made the whole process much easier. So, I think really providing the information to your board up front about the business case and helping them understand that this is not something it's not the newest fad. Like, this is something that's taking hold of the business world, and you talk to any leading company and any directors of major boards, and they're very conscious of the focus on purpose and its place going forward. So this is something that, at the end of the day, our board really, grappled with, but at the end of the day, supported and understood was a necessary part of our next transition.
And Amanda, I know in your organization, it's kind of been in the DNA for quite some while.
That's right, and we're really fortunate to have that, Paul. Our president Richard has always been deeply committed to the environment, and our founder as well has just really been dedicated to sustainability. I must make a comment though, for any business, you get caught up in the day-to-day, hustle, and there's been a lot more, hectic events in this time of turbulence. And so really what we found was still continuing on with our social purpose and having meetings with Coral Strandberg, who's an advisor of social purpose, helps us reignite and helps us remind us, especially management, that we do need to keep, our social purpose going, and that sustainability is still very active in today. So it's a really good active reminder. And yeah, top-down leadership is definitely very important in achieving our sustainability goals.
Great, thank you. We've got a question here. Many low-income and homeless people provide society a service by collecting recyclables from the environment or diverting them from landfills. This can be seen as both an environmental and economic benefit. What's your understanding of this practice? And is there anything being done about it regarding enhancing your social purpose and helping these stakeholders? I guess that's for you, Alan.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like me. Yeah, so we're really, we're conscious of the fact that we, some folks are utilizing our program and are really able to supplement their income. And I think we've worked with groups such as the Binners Project that represent a portion of those folks to find ways to support what they're doing. So part of the reason we invested in the card share is, with the Binners Project convinced us it would be one way to improve safety for binners and certainly support the activity that they're doing. They provide a huge service to our organization and in meeting our environmental objectives. And a lot of our depots will go out of their way to treat them as they would any high volume customer. So a lot of them will, they'll do special events, maybe quarterly haircuts, coffee and donuts in the morning for people who arrive early. So I think they try to cater to them to the greatest extent possible, recognizing just the huge service they're doing in the huge volume of containers. So there's probably more to do on this, and part of that will be just ongoing work we do with the Binners Project. But certainly, we're conscious of their role within our program, and to the extent we can, we're working with the impact or the groups responsible for interacting with them to try and see how we can support that going forward.
Thanks, Alan. I've got another question here. Another major crisis unfolding at the same time as the pandemic is systemic racism. In what ways have recent anti-racism mobilizations led to discussions about your business's roles in this conversation and shaped your social sustainability responses? I'll open that to either of you.
Yeah, I can touch on this topic. Yes, there has been a lot of social issues being brought up in the world at this time too. And so again, when it comes to sustainability, it's not only about the environment, it's also about the social aspect as well. So we've had many discussions at Hemlock. We've created a diversity committee in order to discuss these topics in full. We've made sure to communicate that through blog posts and social media as well, to say that we are committed to this aspect as well, and that we're working to make sure that we're supporting everyone at this time. So that's a way that we've been doing it, is creating an active committee.
Thanks, Amanda. Alan, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, so I think, we haven't probably been as public as maybe we could be on this issue. I think we've had a diversity policy in place for a little while already, and we probably operate one of the more diverse organizations in British Columbia, just in terms of our workforce. We've got a very diverse workforce, and people of color have a significant representation within our organization. Probably more to do on this front, but it's certainly, we've never shied away that, we support the general movements to try and ensure that all people are treated equally, and certainly address some of the systematic issues that we all understand are at play.
Thanks, Alan. Thank you. One more question here. How are your corporate SDGs, and now the greater emphasis in equity, impacting not only your operations, but also your core business into the future? In other words, are there some major pivots you are considering, and how are your SDGs weighing into those potential core business changes? Either of you want to start?
Yeah, sure, I can start. So we had actually really connected with our SDGs earlier on in the year. And I would say, yeah, it has helped us pivot and also really help us focus in on what our priorities are. So now we're really focusing in on biodiversity as well as forest conservation, and then because we're able to have this framework to help us know, okay, this is the goal that we have, and here are all the initiatives linked to that goal, we are able to pivot. And so, just over the past year or so, the Zero program, carbon neutral program for our clients, has grown exponentially because, we realize that through these goals, the Zero program is linked to forest conservation, and that we want to propel this program forward.
Thanks, Amanda.
Yeah, and I think for us, Hemlock's a bit advanced. They were in an earlier cohort than us, so we just had our social purpose statement approved, right before the pandemic, and then have been working through the pandemic. So we've got an implementation team set up, and they'll be looking at things like the SDGs as we look at implementing the social purpose across the organization. You know, the one I would focus on is really the obvious one, which is life below water. We remain concerned, and it's a top of mind issue for us, that any material that could be recycled is entering the marine or the natural environment. And so, you know, we've started with education programs like Ocean Ambassadors, but we'll continue to look at additional partnerships as we go forward on how we can address some of the issues around plastics or other materials entering the natural environment, because we want to stop that at the source if we can.
Thanks. And I'll just wrap up with one more question, if I can. And obviously, your organisations are pretty well advanced in a lot of the work that you're doing, and especially now having both gone through the social purpose program. I'm sure a number of the people on the call today are at different stages of their journey, so to speak. For those that are perhaps in the early stages, just getting going and looking, well, how do I prioritize? What do I do first? What's the first major steps I need to undertake? Any initial advice you'd give those folks for how to get the journey going and starting to move it forward?
I could go first, or Amanda, do you want to go first?
Oh no, you could go for it.
Okay. I think for us it was really about you know, I think for us it was really about engaging our board and engaging our key stakeholders. And I think you know, you can't start that soon enough. And I think that process yielded a lot of really positive results. So even before we had even, you know, gotten close to defining what our social purpose, we'd already made a number of changes to our organization based on the feedback we got from employees and other stakeholders who went through that process. So, you know, the process itself helped us, you know, make some changes to our business. And I think the other thing was taking the time. So, you know, not to rush it. I think, you know, my staff would know this. Sometimes I'd like to get everything done tomorrow. I think a lot of senior executives can be like that. We can always do things faster and quicker. And I think part of what we liked about the Social Purpose Institute in the United Way was kind of the disciplined process that put us through and made us really take the time to think through what we wanted that social purpose to look like and make sure that we had it right. And I think so far we're really happy with the outcome, but happy with the process that put us through, because in addition to having a great social purpose statement and a North Star, we learned a lot along the way that helped us, you know, evolve and change our operations.
Thanks, Alan. And thank you to both of you. It was really interesting today to hear from a couple of organizations that are really, as I say, a long way along their journey, but always still looking to improve, looking to learn more, and also taking the time out to provide leadership to the rest of us, to everybody in the community, on how we can all do better and what's out there for us all to aim for. And we've heard the phrase North Star a few times today, and I imagine we'll be hearing that a lot more as we all start to get more engaged. So thanks again to both of you. We really appreciate you taking the time, and we look forward to continuing to connect with you as we do more of these events. And talk about events, obviously we can't do the events in person at the present moment, but we do have other events coming up. In fact, next week we have part 2 of Green Talks, where we have half a dozen organizations in a rapid fire format, engaging, providing some very engaging and interesting presentations on all things sustainable, from green roofs to urban farming to locally made compostable straws. So a variety of things for you to look forward to on that one. So if you haven't signed up for that, please do. And if you know any other folks that you think might want to sign up for it, please encourage them to do so. And then on Tuesday, the 6th of October, we have at 9 o'clock in the morning, a B Corps 101 session online as well. So for anybody who wants to use a new business tool and certification designed to measure a company's success and impact, that's what B Corps can help you do. So if you're interested in learning more, please come out to that one on October the 6th. And for those of you, I know many of you who are on the call today are members of ours. For those of you that aren't, or if you know somebody that might want some more information about what we do, this Thursday at 1:30, we have a membership information session online. So if you'd like more information on that, please contact one of us here and we can get you signed up. So thanks again to Amanda from Hemlock, and thanks again to Alan from Returnit. Great presentations. Thank you to our sponsors, Alexander College, thank you Scott, and Hemlock Printers. Thanks everyone for coming today, and enjoy the rest of the day. I think the weather's going to take a bit of a turn tonight and tomorrow, so wrap up warm, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.